Kia ora koutou katoa and talofa lava. The visit by Prime Minister Fiamē Naomi Mataafa this week comes at a special time for the unique relationship that Aotearoa New Zealand shares with Samoa. This year marks the 60th anniversary of Samoa's independence and 60 years since the signing of the Treaty of Friendship between Samoa and Aotearoa New Zealand. As a close friend of New Zealand over the past 60 years, I'm delighted to welcome Samoa's Prime Minister on her first official bilateral visit since being elected. The visit has been an opportunity to celebrate and reflect on the deep historical, cultural, and familial ties that we share with Samoa. To mark these important milestones, I'm pleased to announce a special fellowship in the name of the Right Honourable Prime Minister Fiamē Mataafa. We are also restarting the Prime Minister's Fellowship for Samoa. In addition, we are launching new Sports Leadership Awards aimed at supporting emerging leaders in sport in Samoa, particularly women and girls. The hononga and the kotahitanga that is enshrined in the Treaty of Friendship are the foundations of our relationship. As close Pacific friends, the prosperity and security of our nations and our peoples are inextricably linked. In that light, Prime Minister Fiamē and I have discussed a range of issues critical to Samoa and Aotearoa New Zealand and to our Pacific region. We've shared our experiences of managing COVID-19 and its health and economic impacts. New Zealand was pleased to support Samoans' vaccination campaign, which we discussed, and the incredible vaccination rates amongst Samoa's young people, along with a range of assistance, including rapid antigen tests, technical assistance, and increased budget support. New Zealand and Samoa will continue to work closely together as our countries take further strides towards reconnecting our peoples and helping to boost economic recovery, including the tourism sector. We also discussed climate change and how we can strengthen our cooperation in this critical area. We've committed to provide further funding support to Samoa's climate change priorities and the implementation of its climate change adaptation plans through our increased climate finance commitment. Prime Minister Fiamē and I exchanged views on regional issues and the utmost importance on regional unity. We underscored our view that engagement in the Pacific should advance Pacific priorities, be consistent with established regional practices, and be supportive of Pacific regional institutions. The Pacific Islands Forum is the preeminent regional organisation for Pacific leaders to discuss, build consensus, and act on shared challenges. Any activities that destabilise the current regional institutions and arrangements would undermine our region's security. Today's discussions with Prime Minister Fiamē have reflected our enduring and deep friendship, and I look forward to continuing our work together on the complex challenges facing our world, and doing so in a manner which reflects our manaakitanga and respect for each other's mana. Prime Minister Fiamē.
Thank you, Prime Minister Ardern, for your very warm words of welcome to me and my delegation. I am very honoured to be a guest of the Government of Aotearoa New Zealand. I was very touched this morning by the ceremonial receiving of us, first by the tangata whenua, as we say in Samoa, the headlands, greeted at the headlands, and of course you, Madam Prime Minister, as Leader of Government. We meet at this time at a particular juncture where we're celebrating three key milestones of 60 years of Samoa's independence, the long-enduring partnership between our two countries since we established diplomatic relations, and importantly, the commemoration of the Treaty of Friendship on August 1st, when Samoa will open its borders to everyone. Prime Minister, I've formally conveyed to you an invitation for a delegation from the New Zealand government to travel to Samoa, where we can hold a commemoration on that day, and we look forward to welcoming the New Zealand delegation. And I'm hopeful that you might have time to come too. I am happy to see that in our first face-to-face engagement, we have been able to cover a lot of ground, from issues of national interest to regional and multilateral agendas. We reaffirm the strong alignment between Samoa's pathway for the development of Samoa and Aotearoa New Zealand's international cooperation program on the identified focal sectors of health and education, tourism, private sector development, and economic and resilient institutions. We are pleased to see the resumption of the scholarship scheme. Our close collaboration has been accentuated in our responses to the pandemic and promoting the importance of a well-coordinated response on a number of different stakeholders, led by the government. Targeted assistance from New Zealand has placed us in a position of readiness to open our borders. Prime Minister, can I just further underscore the assistance with the vaccinations, especially for the school-aged children? We are now over 90% coverage in Samoa, and that really has enabled us to consider the reopening of our borders. We have convergence on what are our regional priorities and have ongoing commitment to ensure that we live in a peaceful, secure, and prosperous and resilient Blue Pacific as set out under the Boy and Bikitawa declarations. We firmly believe in regional unity and the importance of a strong collective voice. In the face of tough global challenges in the last few years, our two countries have continued to work closely together to address the adverse impacts of climate change, extensive biodiversity loss, and looking for potential windfalls of the pandemic so we can ensure a sustainable and resilient recovery post-pandemic. We thank New Zealand for its climate finance facility to support the Pacific countries enhance the level of ambition of their respective climate action initiatives. Prime Minister, I've appreciated not only speaking with yourself, but with your team of ministers, as we do need collective approaches to ensure we meet our goals. We acknowledge the importance of labour mobility to the economies of both sending and hosting countries. Hence, there is interest to explore new labour mobility opportunities and at the same time consider ways by which we can ensure a circular process so that a human resource constraint country like Samoa can respond appropriately in a balanced manner. It is important for us to continue to work together to jointly face these challenges and the future ones to come. And I hope from our conversations we will be able to deepen the existing state of cooperation and explore new areas of mutual interest.
Thank you. The first question is from Tangata Pacifica.
Talofa lava Awhionga Fiamē. The last seasonal worker flight from Samoa arrived in New Zealand, I believe, on Sunday. Sorry, Fiamē, just over here.
Yeah, I'm just giving you my ear.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It is quite hard to hear up here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
quite hard to hear.
Sorry, I thought the mic was on, but I'm not sure.
It's not quite as amplified as it could be.
Sorry, I'm not ignoring you.
I thought I might give that use that as a strategy.
Just looking at the seasonal worker flights that the government of Samoa have stopped to come to New Zealand. Are you able to provide a bit more context around why that's happened and what's the effect on the workforce?
Well, we actually haven't stopped. They've continued, but possibly slowed down. I think, things have overtaken us. As a new administration, this was a scheme already in place, plans set out. Very quickly, though, you've probably seen the media reporting, especially from Australia. The New Zealand scheme seems to be very well run. But it has given us some concerns. And also, very quickly, we've noticed the impacts on our own development sectors. The original idea was the recruitment would be from the unemployed sector. So it's possibly a lapse on our part in terms of the screening and the recruitment. But we now find that, from the public service to private sector, our manufacturing and tourism sectors have begun to be quite vocal in terms of the loss of human resource through the RSE. So the RSE, especially during the COVID period, people losing their jobs, impacted livelihoods. So this scheme has provided for our families. So we're very mindful of that. But I think you'll note from my comments that we need to have a bit more balance. I think it's a good opportunity for a new administration, not only to review for ourselves, but to have further dialogues with our partners in this scheme, both New Zealand and Australia.
Ben, Australian Associated Press.
Thank you. And please accept my apologies for the phone ringing during your address. My question is about the hysteria or frenzied interest in Chinese engagement in Samoa, which has taken place in New Zealand and Australia over the last 2 months. So the Australian and New Zealand governments have made clear that decisions about agreements need to be made by Pacific nations, both alone and together collectively as a region. So my question is, the New Zealand government has said it welcomes Chinese investment and engagement in the Pacific, but it would be gravely concerned at the militarisation or securitisation of countries like Samoa. So would Samoa also be concerned by this?
Well, I think your word was frenzied. It might be frenzied somewhere else, but we're not frenzied. And, to cut directly to the issue, there are no discussions between Samoa and China on militarization at all. You will recall that there was a visit from the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs. He had a particular proposal to the countries in the region who are affiliated or have diplomatic relations with mainland China. And they had a proposal to put to that group. But you will also know that the decision was that the group of countries felt the appropriate modality of consideration of these kinds of proposals need to be passed through the Forum Secretariat, where we have a chance not only for the Secretariat to do an analysis and report, but also for each of the countries for themselves to review what is being proposed. So this is not a new thing for the Forum countries. We have the dialogue partners, of which, China, US, UK. So, but they have tended to move away from that modality, and I think COVID has also not helped, not having the regular meetings. And so I'm very pleased to tell you, if you didn't know already, the leaders will be meeting in July from the 12th to the 14th, which will be a very good opportunity just to bring back the modalities of meetings and also to consider the specific issues before us, including, the Chinese security issues which have arisen in the region.
TVNZ.
Hi. A question for both of you is how challenging will it be for all Pacific Forum leaders to agree that the regional security deals in place, such as Bikitawa, Boy, are enough to deal with security threats domestically and internationally? And also, are you confident that these small island leaders are coming back to the table?
Do you want me to take the lead?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's a good opportunity for the region to consider security issues in the context of something that is current. and to test the usefulness, I suppose, of the instruments that we already have in place. If they're not enough, then it's an opportunity to have that discussion around that. But I think I've made the point to Prime Minister Ardern and other colleagues. Although the issue arose out of the agreement between the Solomons and China, the issue needs to be considered in the broader context of what we have in place and what we want to do in terms of the security provisions for the region.
We have within the Biki Tawa agreement a position from the Pacific Island Forum that for issues that affect regional security, we come together and we discuss those as a region and within the forum. And I think the second point would be that we actually have within the region the capability and the capacity to deal with security issues that may arise as well. So in conjunction, having the discussion, trying to reach consensus, and then having the capability should mean that as a Pacific Island Forum, we can address these needs together. What we also have to consider, though, is every Pacific Island member has its own sovereign right to make their own decisions as well. So as a forum, we'll come together, we'll discuss these issues. We'll, of course, hope to build consensus, but we also will need to continue to respect the sovereignty of every nation who's a member of that forum too.
And the second part of that question was whether how confident are we that all those small island states are definitely coming back to the table?
Well, I was in Fiji last week for a mini leaders meeting. You will appreciate that a lot of work has been done leading up to last week through the leadership of the chair of the forum, Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama, but also consultations around the region with leaders, and I'm sure Prime Minister Ardern has played a significant role. The outcome of last week is that we're very confident that northern members of the family are returning to the fold, so to speak. Those of us who were there were 6 members, we've signed. There's a requirement to ensure that the process of leaving the forum by the northerners will be halted. So everyone has to sign on by the end of June, and then to have it formalized when the leaders meet in mid-July.
Cool. RNZ Pacific.
Just give us your loudest inside voice.
Hello, Prime Minister. I'm Lydia Lewis from RNZ Pacific. The Pacific Island Forum is meeting next month. Thank you for releasing the official date. Are you satisfied, though, that New Zealand is up to speed with its role and responsibilities as part of the Blue Pacific continent?
I hope we're all up to speed.
I'm happy for you to give us a performance appraisal. It's no problem.
And following that, Samoa has also just celebrated 60 years of independence. What do you require now from your relationship with New Zealand?
Well, I think at these sort of junctures where, it's a celebration that we've reached particular milestones, it's an opportunity to reflect. You will appreciate we're a new administration, but the relationship between the two countries is not a new one. New Zealand is one of our oldest partners. We have a colonial administration history. So that's another dynamic of the relationship. I'm not in a rush as a new leader to be coming up with a shopping list of any sort. This visit is more to make a reconnection, to have the opportunity to reflect, and perhaps, share a conversation where we can reprioritize, perhaps, where we put our energies. Climate change, of course, is always at the top of that. I think the traditional ones, which have been health, education, these are such key pillars to development, not only for my country, but for the region. So we're coming past the COVID COVID has provided, I mean, it has impacted us, but it's also given us a lot of really good lessons on how we can operate, and building back stronger after the pandemic is something I think as leaders we're all working together in.
Tangata Pacifica.
Hi again. Sorry to be greedy. You mentioned the assistance that New Zealand has given around the COVID pandemic. With borders about to open soon for Samoa, are you confident that Samoa is ready to welcome back visitors? And also, second part of that is, what would be your message to the Samoan community here in New Zealand around coming home?
Yes. Well, essentially, we're open now for Samoans, as long as you can find a seat on a plane. I had a meeting with Air New Zealand, and of course, you know, the airlines, like everyone else, is readjusting. We've been given reassurances. At the moment, we have a weekly passenger flight and a weekly cargo flight. From 1st August, they will progressively increase until it gets up to a daily flight by the end of the year. So we're very confident, you know, working with the different partners and stakeholders. That'll be a measured thing, you know. To your question on whether we'll be ready, yes, we're ready, as we've indicated, for the returning Samoans. 1st of August is a target, so it was very important for us, just like all other governments, you know, to give the indication of what times are set so that people can put their preparations in place.
And then your message to the Samoan community as well?
Here?
Oh, yeah, in New Zealand?
With regards to the opening up, welcome home. We look forward to it. This year, the 60th anniversary, it's a year-long celebration. So there's no need to rush back for the 1st of June, which is already gone. And there are many other calendar events that are being set up. We hope one of those will be the 1st of August. We've also formally indicated an invitation for the visit of your Governor-General, and perhaps at a later time. And of course, you know, in Samoa there are various national events. Te Wila, for instance, would be another time. Our big church gatherings is another opportunity that brings in many Samoans from overseas. So we look forward to welcoming people back home.
Radio Watia.
Me tuku mihi ki a koe e te maraikura hara mai anō ki tēnei whenua. Ko te wā pauri, te wā o dawn raids, how did you feel, how did you respond when the Prime Minister apologised for those dawn raids on behalf of the nation? Well,
the particular ceremony, especially the covering of the Fiamē, is a Samoan practice. So we understand the significance of the ceremonial apology. So I thought that was, I mean, it was a very marked action to take. Now, from an external position, I think, you know, any reconciliation that can happen within a country that brings together diverse communities is something to be celebrated, and I just want to congratulate the New Zealand government on making that formal apology and sending a message really and to reconcile. When we all live together, it's important to settle grievances and differences, and, you know, to bring back the unity of a community.
Cool. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the press conference.